how do you move the needle in your business? This, for me, I call this the $7 million business card, because that's approximately how much revenue this book has brought in over the last 12 months.
What if writing a book could be the smartest move that you ever make for your business? In this episode, you're going to meet Chandler Bolt, college dropout, best-selling author, and the CEO of selfpublishing.com. He's helped over 10,000 people publish their books, including entrepreneurs who use their books to generate leads, close sales, and grow their brands without spending a penny on ads.
Books have really been big mentors for me. I call it the college dropout's approach to learning, because we use the book to get more leads, to get more sales, and then more referrals.
If you ever thought maybe I should write a book, this conversation might be the nudge that you've been waiting for. Let's do this. Why should every single business owner write a book?
I mean, I think they should only do it if they want to get rich and make a bigger impact.
ActionCOACH, the help you need to grow your business. All right, so who is the real Chandler Bolt?
But Usain Bolt is my brother from another mother. People say I have got a name for football, but somehow ended up in business. I mean, the real Chandler is a college dropout and with ADHD and a C-level English student that ended up writing books. An unlikely author is what I would call it, and growing businesses, and that's what I have fun doing.
An unlikely author. It's quite cool, the college dropout thing, isn't it? So many business owners have failed at school. 40% of self-made millionaires on the planet are dyslexic.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And God knows what the statistic is on ADHD, but when did you find out you got ADHD?
I mean, clinically when I was in college, but my parents always knew. It was one of those things where they just didn't. Their thing was, I don't want to give Ritalin and Adderall to my kid. I want my kid to be a kid. And we never went to the doctor under any circumstances. I remember when I literally jumped off a balcony and fractured 4 of my toes, but I was too scared I told my parents, but I was too scared to go to the doctor because I was embarrassed. And I remember the next day playing a baseball game, playing the rest of fall baseball season, playing a full basketball season, and finally just saying, hey, this hurts too bad. And they took me to the doctor, and the doctor said, all 4 of your toes were fractured. One of them still is. This is 6 months later. And he put me in a cast. And I was in a cast for a while, and then I was playing drums and playing basketball too much in the cast. And so then I busted a hole in the cast, and it got disgusting. And so then they put me in a boot, which allowed me to try to take it off to get into baseball games and stuff. And I mean, that was just kind of the ethos of who we are and who we were, especially as blue collar. You don't, it's like, I don't know, self-preservationist, if you will, just like, hey, you don't got to rely on other people, and you don't got to go to the doctor, or you don't got to do whatever else. And so, I don't know, I believe the dyslexic stat, because one of the guys that used to be in my brother's band, he was the best songwriter in the band, and he was dyslexic. Right. And just like you said, the 40% of millionaires are dyslexic, ADHD. I think it's because it's a superpower, and it teaches you to color outside the lines and defy authority and all the other fun stuff.
Yeah, it's one of them things. You hear that people are diagnosing other people with it all the time now. Probably everybody's got it to a degree. And we're not experts on that subject, even though I think I've got ADHD as well. And I only found out last year at 44-year-old that I'd got dyslexia, having interviewed a multimillionaire that had dyslexia. And I kind of found out at that point that I'd got it. So you're an unlikely author. Why did you choose to author a book?
Yeah, there was this phone call. I remember it like it was yesterday when I was in Charleston going to school, and I'm talking to my brother. Now, my brother plays in a Grammy-nominated rock and roll band. I think he was on tour with Taylor Swift at the time. And we were talking, and I said, man, I'm getting to college, and I realized that none of my friends know all this stuff that our parents taught us that I thought was normal. He said, yeah, I realized, because he's a decade older than me. He said, yeah, I realized the same thing. No one knows the stuff that our parents taught us. So that was what we realized when we got out in the real world. all of this common knowledge wasn't taught or learned by anyone else. And so we said, hey, what if we write a book on this? And it's these 15 things our parents taught us growing up that we thought were normal. It's his perspective as a musician, my perspective as a business guy. So kind of right brain, left brain on these same 15 things. We wrote a book, and I actually wrote and published a couple books at that same time. Those books did pretty well. Then as I was dropping out of school, the books start doing well. People start saying, hey, how are you doing this? How are you doing this? How are you doing this? And it's almost as if, somebody can only smack you in the face so many times before you turn around and look. And then you turn around and look, and there's a whole line of people there. And so that's what became the first version of what's now selfpublishing.com, is us just helping people get their first books done after we had done it.
At what point did you launch this book?
Starting your own business was an exciting time, wasn't it? The good days you had, and the bad. You knew you'd have to work hard, but you did it for your future. Lately, though, you're missing out on the important things in life. Time seems to be slipping by. So make the change. Claim back your work-life balance and grow your business today. Visit actioncoach.co.uk.
That book, the first version of that book, was launched in probably 2016 or so. And then I did the second edition, I want to say in 2020 or 2021.
There's two things that I really like about this book. And I asked you beforehand, what do you like best about the book? And you said, it's actionable. Mm-hmm. It's really actionable. You listen to this book and you want to take action. Mm-hmm. It's the best how-to guide that you can get to write a book.
Oh, yeah.
Here's to that. I love that about that. I mean, there's the other thing that grabbed my attention from the first point that I looked at it was the title. Mm-hmm. Published. It's an outcome.
Yes.
Have you heard of Marcus Sheridan? Mm-hmm. Yeah, They Ask You Answer, he wrote. He's a solid author as well, and he has a test which is, I want that test. It's when people look at the title of your book, do people want that?
Exactly.
So the title of the book has to pass the I want that test, and that does, doesn't it? Because anyone who reads that book, they want to become exactly that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, the way we look at it, and there's actually a chapter about this in the book, it's all about coming up with a compelling title. And it's exactly what you said. It's a good title. Someone instantly understands what the book's about and whether or not it's for them. So in this, you see published, that's an outcome, aspirational, then the proven path from blank page to 10,000 copies sold, proven path, social proof, blank page, pain. I have a pain. I imagine this blinking cursor of death just taunting me. And then to 10,000 copies sold, that's an outcome once again, right? And so that's what I like to think about when coming up with a title, is they need to instantly understand what the book's about, whether or not it's for them. And then to Marcus Sheridan's point, say, I want that.
Do you know what? See this as a challenge or as a compliment, whichever one you want to go with. As I've done more research into you and found out more about selfpublishing.com, which I'm fully love, I'm beginning to think that should be 100,000 copies, because the amount of authors that you've got to that point now where it's 100,000 copies, that's borderline leverage, legend status, isn't it? It's 100,000 copies.
Well, I think that's an interesting thing in a promise that you make, is how do you make it compelling enough or bold enough that it's compelling and not so bold that it feels unreachable, right? Which I think, I landed on 10,000 copies for that, where, the average self-published book sells less than 100 copies, which is pretty pathetic. Most books sell less than 1,000 copies. And then a good book, even traditionally published, is 10,000 copies. So it's kind of, I know in our world, we know a lot of authors that have sold way more than that, but it's kind of crazy how little most books sell. And so saying, all right, how do we get a benchmark that makes sense? But then to the point of what we'll probably talk about a lot more in this interview, how do you move the needle in your business? Which, maybe for a future book on, if I, do one that's more focused on business, it would be to 7 figures in your business. The copies sold is totally irrelevant if your goal is to use the book to grow your business.
What's your purpose?
I would say, I believe that I've been given God-given abilities in the area of business, and that is the highest leverage thing that I can do for my family, for future generations of my family, and with the talents that I've been given. So my goal is to run $1 billion company that long after I'm off this earth, it's still here. It's making the world a better place. And I've always felt like business is that unique skill set where some people are really good in the one-to-one, some people are really good in the one-to-many. Some people, I mean, my talents are in the area of business. I remember watching this Bill Gates documentary and hearing his wife talk about them doing all this work in Africa. She's like, oh, I love loving on the one person. She's like, Bill could care less. He's not in that, but he is back thinking about, hey, what's the systemic thing that we could do that would impact millions of people? And so that's kind of different, but similar to, I feel like, skill sets in business that I have, which is, okay, how do we build this system that I believe business is the best possible vehicle for good? You get to change the lives of your customers. Like we change lives through books. You get to change the lives of your employees through the culture that you create and creating financial freedom for them. And then you get to create a profit that you can then change future generations of your family. We've built schools, we've built houses, we've donated to churches, charities, all that stuff. So it's the ultimate offshoot it's the ultimate vehicle for good, right? So that's the purpose that I have, is growing and building things and having a lot of fun doing it.
Early on, when you were younger, one of your friends passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And did that make you go into this business in any way?
It made me double down on this business. And so I had a friend that passed away right in front of me. We were on a rewards trip for a company that I worked with at the time. Fell 2 stories. I was the first one to get down there. He passed away. It was on a cruise ship. It was like this rewards cruise. And I remember a week or 2 after that, being at his funeral, talking to his dad. And he said, Kendall is my only son. He's the family name. We said, I'm old. I can't have more kids. He said, the only good that can come out of this is if other people's lives are positively impacted by the fact that this happened. And that just hit me in the chest, because I felt like it was my fault that he died. It was my idea. We went up on the highest point of the ship and we're celebrating and all this stuff. And then this thing turned on and it pushed him over. And so I'm thinking like, hey, if I didn't have this idea, if I wasn't rallying people up there, this wouldn't happen. And so I just remember when he said that, it's like, hey, the only good that can come out of this is if other people's lives are positively impacted. It just really galvanized me personally, because the night before he passed away, he had told me about his dreams and his goals for the next year and his business and all this stuff. And I just realized he's not going to get to accomplish any of that stuff. So from that point, I feel like it's just a very big demarcation point in my life. I'm living for 2. And it created this sense of urgency that I don't think I really had before. And so to your point, purpose, maybe a little purpose plus ADHD, it just this purpose of, hey, I'm living for 2 and life is short. He was younger than me. I'm not promised tomorrow. So if I need to attack what I'm going after with a sense of urgency, because who knows when your time is up. It's a very cliche saying, but I found it to be true, literally. And so that's where I've got this bracelet that says make him proud on one side, and the other side says WWKD, what would Kendall do? It's just kind of a daily reminder.
WWKD?
KD, yeah, Kendall was his name. So what would Kendall do? And that's more of, he was an extremely selfless leader and just a good person. And so it's a reminder for me of, hey, what would Kendall do? How would he handle this in this scenario? And then the make him proud is, hey, I'm living for 2.
Such a nice question, that, isn't it? What would Kendall do?
Mm-hmm.
That person that's closest to your heart, that has a big impact on you. Part of your purpose, actually, of making the world a better place, creating a lasting impact, what you've said there. What would Kendall do? So for anyone listening right now, they could choose that most important person or biggest influence in their life, ask the same question. I've got a bracelet on, but doesn't say what would Kendall do. My little girl Olivia made this before I flew out. So she says, you got to wear it when you're on camera. So I had to wear this.
And it reminds you of your purpose in some way as well.
Of course.
Creating a better life for them. And that's, I guess, the part of that story that I left out is after Kendall passed away, we found out that he had actually showed up to one of my random webinars and wrote a decent chunk of a book. And so with the help of his friends, we were able to actually publish his book after he passed away. So that was the clarifying thing for me. When after he passed away, I just kind of took inventory of my life and I said, hey, I'm chasing a lot of the wrong things. Money, women, fame, all these things. What am I doing in my life that truly matters? And I said, hey, my faith, my family, and what I'm doing, helping people publish books. These are truly the only things that I'm doing that are making the world a better place. So I was kind of this there was this fork in a road where I'm getting kind of burn out on the business. And right before that, I was thinking like, maybe do something else. But then that happened, and it was this fork to just go all in. And so that's when we doubled down on the business and just pushed all the chips in the table. A few months later, all my bank accounts are negative. I borrowed $15,000 in what I call triple F financing. You ever heard of that?
Triple F, go on.
Triple F financing, friends, family, and fools.
Friends, family,
These only people dumb enough to give you money at this point in your business, right?
Beg, borrow, and steal.
Yes.
That's what they call it.
Yes, BBS. That's better than the BSBS. But then we were all in, and the rest is history.
This episode is sponsored by ClickFunnels. You're only one funnel away from impacting millions. Head over to clickfunnels.com/bizx for more information. Now back to the podcast. Is that when it started getting better, when you were all in?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was the year before, best-selling book system. There were 3 of us as business partners. We did $84,000 in sales that year. That's sales. I don't even know what the profit was. It was extremely insignificant.
Yeah.
But I made so little money that year that the IRS just said, you're good. Like, don't file taxes. You are a drag on the system. You're below the poverty line. You don't have to file. And then the next year is when we launched Self-Publishing School. So Kendall passed away in September, October. We launched in February of 2015. And then that year we went from zero or negative to 1.32 million in sales. And then that following January was when I, show up to the offsite. My business partner's trying to kick me out of the business. So I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but when you're growing and you see that this end, it's like the finish line. It's like, oh man, now I'm finally going to make money, or I'm finally going to achieve. And then that happened. I went multiple 6 figures in debt, and then the finish line just got pushed out another year, 2 years, whatever. But then, all right, now I'm multiple 6 figures in debt. I had to fire a bunch of people, really right the ship, and then, kept working away at it. I think the next year we maybe did 1.8 million or so. Maybe it's 2.1. But then pay off all the debt. And it's been stacking every year since then.
Okay, so it's quite a journey you've been on business. If you had to narrow it down into your top 2 or 3 mistakes that you've made, what would you say the biggest mistakes you've made are?
How much time you got?
2 or 3.
I would say, gosh, so many. I would say the first one would be don't partner out of insecurity.
Yep.
So I think so many people partner out of insecurity. They either partner with someone who's just like them, or they partner with someone because they're scared to or afraid they don't have what it takes to do it themselves, right? And if you're partnering with someone just like you, well then one of you is replaceable and should not be there, right? Because you got the same skill set. Why would you be business partners? So don't partner out of insecurity. That's probably one of the biggest ones early on, I would say. But then there's so many other big mistakes. I would say not creating process in the business early enough. And I didn't even know what systems and SOPs and all that stuff were. So that was a big one. And then I would just say not investing in my leadership early enough. So early on, John Maxwell talks about the law of the lid. He says, basically you are the bottleneck. And a mentor of mine, Michael Hyatt, he would always ask me this question: what about your leadership led to this result? Anytime I had problem in my business, he's like, okay, interesting, Chandler. What about your leadership led to this result?
Getting away from that one, eh?
No,
hiding
at all.
Places with that.
Exactly. And so it's just, I view.
How old were you when you got asked that question?
Maybe 27.
It's really okay. I mean, you're still really young in terms of entrepreneurial terms. So 31 years old, you've already achieved something so big. 27, being asked. What age did you start getting mentors around you?
I mean, I call a book a $15 mentor. And so when I was 16 years old, my dad handed me this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
And it just rocked my world. And so that was the book that showed me that it introduced me to passive income. And it also showed me that books change lives. And so I think if you count books, from the age of 16, you could go lower than that and say my dad or people, in my church or my family or all that stuff. But then books have really been big mentors for me. I call it the college dropouts approach to learning, where I dropped out of school, but then I operated like I was still in school, but just used books. So I'd say, what's the biggest problem in my life or in my business right now? What's the best book on that? I would read it, implement it, and then just repeat again and again and again. And so I think $15 mentors have been mentoring me for a long time.
I love that.
A lot of other ones, yeah.
There's business owners listening. Why should every single business owner on the planet write a book, self-publish a book?
Yeah. I mean, I think they should only do it if they want to get rich and make a bigger impact.
Okay, guys, only do it if you want to get rich and make a bigger impact. Now, maybe rich in every sense of the word as well.
Yeah. So I look at it in two ways. One, leveraged impact. So you do work once, you create this book. This book goes on to impact thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even millions of people. It brings leverage to the impact that you're trying to make. It goes from one to many, right? But then very practically, it helps you get more leads, sales, and referrals in your business. So this, for me, I call this the $7 million business card, because that's approximately how much revenue this book has brought in over the last 12 months for my business, right? And so it's because we use the book to get more leads, so top of funnel, to get more sales throughout the funnel, and then more referrals, bottom of funnel, LTV, all that stuff. So like, that's how I think about it. But then it brings leverage because we give this to every prospect. We give this to every customer. I mean, and the best people, I mean, you probably saw this even when we were at your guys' event, as we're showing up with books. We're giving books away like, you know, to a bunch of people. And so now you see these books all around the conference. People they read the book, they book a call with my team, or maybe they read it on the flight home. They book a call with my team, they sign up to work with us, right? So it gives leverage, but then it also gives leverage to my employees. So we've got a guy here at the office just started yesterday. You get a copy of my book right away, and it's read this first. And so now he's already understanding our methodology, our language, how we speak to people. And so onboarding's faster for customers, for employees, and then it's the engine that drives growth in the business.
Let's talk about this. All right. So look, if you want to get rich, impact more lives, publish a book. All right. So you've got us on that. Now, there is a lot of personal branding in here, and it's not just business owners that's listening. There's also business leaders, executives, and there is, to a degree, some business owners that are a little bit scared of employees' personal branding.
Mm-hmm.
Why should any business leader, forget the owner, any business leader, why should they publish a book? And what can you say to reassure a business owner?
Yeah. Well, I think as a business owner, first off, you should do it first. And so you lead by example, you write and publish the book for your business. But then when it comes to your employees doing it, it gives you leverage in your business. And especially if they're writing a book and teaching about what you do, right? So you can make the decision for yourself, whether as the company you own the IP or they own the IP, that's up to you, right? How I do it in my company is anyone that coaches with us has to have published a book. Just about anyone that speaks for us, because we've got a speaking team of 7 to 10 people that go and speak at conferences, they have to have published a book. I think for the most part, we may have 1 or 2 exceptions to that rule, but because we believe in doing or in teaching what we do and what we've done, not in just teaching theory. So this is why I dropped out of school, because I got tired of learning how to run a business from professors who have never ran businesses. So it'd be pretty hypocritical of me if I had people teaching how to write and publish a book that had never published a book, right? And so I think for business owners, do you have people in your business doing things over and over and over again? The answer is yes. Would it be helpful for them to, instead of having to explain it in a one-off way, write a book on it, and then you give that book to every new client or customer? Yes. And so can they grow a brand and stuff like that? Absolutely. And I've got people on my team that have grown brands that have ended up branching off and running their own thing, some of which still work with us. And I mean, it generates a ton of business for us because people buy and read their books, and in their book, they're cross-referencing and plugging selfpublishing.com. So now all of a sudden, and that's the way I think about it. Now I realize this is like a very niche use case for me and my business, but I've got people that say, hey, write and publish the book, market the hell out of the book, and then use it to segue, especially some of my best salespeople, use your book to get appointments on your calendar, and then you make more money, right? And I make more money because you're bringing in more customers for our business, right? And so it can be just such a win-win. And so that's why for us, as a perk of the company, we cover the cost of people doing their book and they keep the IP, right? So I think the only thing they have to cover is the editing, but we literally cover everything else. They keep the IP, and it's an asset for them that makes money, but it's also an asset for the business that brings back, referrals, customers, et cetera.
Yeah, and loyalty, and you're working together. There's a partnership in there. There's trust in all of what you've said. A big thing for business owners is you get more appointments on your calendar.
Yes.
It did remind me of Stephen Bartlett, though. In his marketing company, he makes everybody develop a personal brand. Mm-hmm. So that they get the lessons, they get feedback. There's no hiding places. Mm-hmm. Like the question that you got asked from one of your mentors. You can't hide from, once you put something out, you're in the public eye. So I had the same lesson from Stephen Bartlett.
When I think the rebuttal is, and this is a lot of people, scarcity-minded people will say, well, hold up, what if I do all this training and invest in my employees above the parable or this quote or whatever? It's like, what if I spend all this money, I invest in my employees and they leave? Yeah. And then the guy says, well, what if you don't and they stay?
Yeah. It's really cool.
You got to work with idiots. Yeah. You're not training them. You're not developing them. So and this is another thing from Michael Hyatt, one of my mentors, that he just really reframed for me, because I felt that. I'm like, man, I just spent 5 years pouring into this guy, and then he left. He's like, Chandler, we're made to be stewards of talent and to be very open-handed in that. So if you create opportunities to where people just develop so much so that they go and do their own thing, or that they go and get massive opportunities, well, guess what? You shouldn't be bitter and upset about that. That's a beautiful thing. That's part of the impact that you're making. And, oh, by the way, it's an incredible recruiting tool, right? Because now I'm able to say, hey, look at these 10 to 15 people. It's like the PayPal mafia over here, and just how many.
Hey, you've got that. You've got that trail of people now that have been there and done that and published the book.
Yeah.
They're hitting the big time.
Yes.
The 100,000 plus, probably bordering million plus copies sold, several of them. So you've got that Hall of Fame talent that you've developed.
Mm-hmm. Both with customers and employees, which is a cool thing, I think, on both sides.
What's the biggest transformation you writing this book had on you personally? Forget the business.
I think it was just, once again, reframing what's possible, because I set a challenge for myself to write and publish this book in a very short time period. And it was while I was the business was at 8 figures. It was either, I think we either just hit 8 figures a year, or we were about to hit 8 figures a year. And I remember we had 30, 40 employees. And so I had all the same excuses that our customers have, or that, quite frankly, the people that don't end up becoming our customers had, which is they talk to the team, they say, you know what, I'm going to do this later. They never do it. Right. And so I was that person saying, oh yeah, I know I need to do this updated version, and just basically gut it and take all the level ups that we've done in our curriculum, put it in the book, put it off. Finally, I put my foot down and said, hey, I'm doing it. And I went from picking up the pen to publishing 105 days later. And there's something different when you live it. Like when you live the experience of your customers, it helps you relate to them in a whole different way. But it also just reframed again for me what's possible and the impact that it can truly have. Because I did it for my business in the way that we were teaching at the time, and still teaching to this day. But I just did it at a higher level because everybody was watching, because I'm the book guy. If I'm going to publish a book that sucks or that doesn't do well, then that's not, that's kind of an indictment on me and our business. So I really put everything I had into it. And I think it was just a learning process in that. And then looking back now, it's oh my gosh, I don't even know how many tens of millions of dollars in sales have come from this book. So I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, well, it's had a huge impact. I mean, there is a lot of personal branding here. I'm just going back to the personal branding thing. Now, how right do you have to get the personal branding when you write the book?
I think the concept needs to speak for itself, and the concept can feed into your personal brand. I think I actually don't think you have to have a great personal brand to launch a book successfully, but a great personal brand can be the byproduct of launching a book successfully. And so when I think about this book, I think about the concepts in it. And yes, I've got personal stories, but the concepts in it kind of stand alone.
It's a really good point. I mean, that to me is you don't have to, your personal brand can emerge from your passion, from your IP that you develop.
Yes.
It can naturally emerge. A lot of people try and find that personal branding before they go off and do something like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it can emerge on the back end, right? So let's take, we were just talking before the interview, a good buddy of mine, Dan Martell. He was just in the office yesterday. He published a book called Buy Back Your Time. So I've known Dan for probably a decade now, and it's kind of giving him a hard time about getting his book done. He went through multiple iterations. We worked together for a bit. He got a ghostwriter. He did all these things. He finally got his book done. And then if you look at the trajectory of that guy's career since that, it's catastrophic. They're going to do $36 million this year. And on the back end of Buy Back Your Time, it's a whole different bit. And so Brian Tracy was on the podcast one time. We talked about AB and BB. So BB is before book and AB is after book. And he's like, there's just a demarcation line where once you get the book done, it changes things.
Yeah, and you're an authority at that point.
Yeah. When the root word of authority is author. You can't spell the word authority without the word author. So for a lot of people, you become an authority in the mind of your prospects and customers by first becoming an author.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty. Is there anything that you would go back and do differently with your book?
With this one?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch of things that I would do differently. None that really come to mind. I think the second edition is a big thing. So I think for a lot of people, almost every book should be relaunched. And so I think I had a bunch of things I would do differently in the V1 of this book that I fixed in V2. And that's the beautiful thing about self-publishing is you can always update, change, etc. But then you can also do an updated and revised version. And so that's what this was, it was the fixing of the things that when I read it, I went back and I said, this sucks. This is not a good book. And so I need to rewrite it. And so that's why I did it.
In the last two things that you said there, I mean, the big learning point for me is it doesn't need to be perfect before you do it.
Right.
And it probably won't be. And
it definitely won't be.
After 12 months, once you've written it, reflected it, put it out, you've probably got other ideas anyway that's going to add to it. And so that's why there is a version 2. Same thing for the personal branding.
Mm-hmm.
If you try and get your personal branding perfect to start with, you could probably write a book and then the personal branding will emerge much more perfect than what you're thinking to start with now. So we live in an imperfect world.
When I love the quote, done is better than perfect. I mean, if you spend forever trying to get the book perfect and you never publish it, well, then what good's the book?
Yeah, it will. You'll never have a book.
Exactly.
A lot of inventors have this problem, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Taking it to market and finishing it off.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I would even argue that I don't think I have much of a personal brand. That's what we're creating at this moment. That's what Tanner's working on. That's what the team's working on, is building out the personal brand. But that, in my mind, is the beautiful thing about a book, and the beautiful thing about what we've done with the business and selfpublishing.com is we have such a good infrastructure that it doesn't matter if I have a personal brand or not. The business grows and the business exists. And so it's a beautiful problem to have, because now we say, okay, well, let's start building the personal brand of Chandler Bolt. That's why we're creating this content studio, doing a lot more, social and video content and all that stuff. Well, then now that's just going to add to this existing thing. But if the whole business was based on my personal brand, it's a pretty flimsy business, right? You can't sell that business because it's based on my personal brand. There's too much key man risk. So I'd rather have it this way, which is, okay, the book is the framework. The business has good frameworks. Like, all of those things are good, and you don't need a personal brand for those things to do well. But then you add it on and the business explodes, that's what the plan is for us.
Same question for the business, selfpublishing.com. I mean, you've hit mega highs now. You're 10 years in. You're the world number one in this space. You've published, I want to say, according to my research, probably almost 10,000 books, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even know that number, but it's going up. But it's going up every day by almost 5 books every single day, so it's pretty cool. Is there anything that you do differently if you went back?
There's a lot of things. I don't have regrets, but I like the way you phrase that question. I do have do differentlies. And so I think I would go all in sooner. And I'm still learning this lesson. I mean, even on the content stuff, we're thinking about this as we speak. And I find myself, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, where what it takes to get to the top of the mountain is very different from what it takes to stay on top of the mountain. And so I think early on I was very reckless, and because I had nothing to lose, right? But then you get on top of the mountain and now you got something to lose. And so I think that's one of the biggest through lines and learning lessons, especially for me over the last couple years, is okay, I have to unlearn some of those things that I'm doing that I'm playing not to lose. At least I have been. And instead of playing to win. And so that's the big lesson for me is, okay, what does it look like to play to win versus playing not to lose? And just just continually going back to that. Because I would tell you, even right now in this moment, there's probably a bunch of areas where I'm playing not to lose. And I'm not, I'm playing safe, right? I don't want to lose money. I don't want to do this, that, and the other. But even with the content stuff, like there's a world where it's like, okay, we should be investing at least $250,000 to $500,000 over the next year on that bet. It's a bet. There's no guarantee that it'll pay off. But why would I not do that? The business spits off a ton of cash, but then in the moment, it's like, well, we're going to spend how much money on this studio? It's like, I don't know, maybe we can do it a little cheaper, right? We're going to build out what? How many people are we going to hire on this team? I don't know. Maybe we hold off on that and let's get the revenue going before we start building out the team. And so I think that's just the thing that I'm having to relearn, because life is short. Even as I'm saying this to you right now, I'm like, hold up. I need to sit down after this interview and think about where is this showing up?
Go bigger again, go all in. I mean, that's the second time you've iterated it in this, and I'm feeling the challenge as much as the listeners are feeling. And you, which tells me we're all in the same thing. We all want to achieve something great. And I want to say to the listeners, go big, go all in. Because everything follows, passion follows. Each probably is scary. Your decision making needs to follow as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if we just go back to the story I told earlier, think about how differently you show up. When I'm multiple six figures in debt, when I've got my parents' retirement on the line, I'm showing up differently. You're playing to win. And so what does that look like?
And you're focused.
Yes. You're hyper-focused. How do I make the cash register ring? And how do I make this business
That was
profitable?
a good way of controlling your ADHD, wasn't
What's
it?
that?
That was a good way to control your ADHD. It was like, borrow all this money, now I've got to go.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So maybe that's the secret to dealing with your ADHD.
Go all in. Go all in. You'll soon become super focused.
Borrow from your parents' retirement and take Adderall.
Yeah, there we go. I got some quick questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
Write a book in the night, at night, late at night, or early in the morning? Which one do you recommend?
Early in the morning, I think you got to. But I would say even the override to the answer would be play to your strengths. When are you most creative? So if you're not a morning person, don't do it in the morning. If you're naturally creative, do it at night. But I think by and large, if you just carve out the first 30 minutes of your day, if you can do it the first hour of your day to write. And I don't start my day until I have 1,000 words written, or every day 30 minutes or hour or whatever. I think that is how you get a book done.
Do you know the story of Seth Godin? So, I don't know, 20 years ago, he's considered one of the best marketers on the planet now, researcher. I mean, he's a writer, really, and that's all he is. But probably 20 years ago, he says, I'm going to write 5 blog articles every day before 8 a.m. That was when blogs weren't even, I didn't even know what a blog was 15 years ago type thing, yeah. But that was his warm-up for him writing his books. And he did it. He did this warm-up, 5 blog articles every day before 8 a.m. Every day, weekends included, holidays included, Christmas Day included. And probably 10 years later, he reaped the benefit of being acknowledged as one of the world's best minds in the subject of marketing. He'd reached the greatness because of commitment. He went like 5 blog articles every day before 8 a.m. It's done every day.
When it's the consistency of showing up, right? I remember going off to college, and my dad flunked out of college after one semester. And he said, all right, you go to college. He said, you just got to make me one promise that you'll show up to class. It's like, you don't have to make me any other promises, but show up to class. He's like, because you're going to want to skip class, and you're going to tell your buddy to mark your name on the roll or whatever else, and tell you, let you know if you got a midterm or a test or a project. He's like, and they're not going to do it. They're not going to show up, or they're not going to. So if you just show up, you won't flunk out like I did. Right? You will at least, C's get degrees. You'll at least get C's. And so I think that is exactly what you're saying, is a lot of life is just showing up and just consistently showing up like Seth Godin did.
Speed of execution or quality of thinking?
Speed of execution.
Why does that win?
Because if you execute quickly, you'll iterate even faster and you'll get feedback loops. So, I mean, if I've...
You get your feedback faster.
Yes. Faster feedback means a better product.
And so it's such a good point. And that is so counterintuitive for the listeners right now.
You want to make it perfect. Done is better than perfect. And it's the Bezos principle. I think he calls it the 80% decision-making rule or something. It's like as soon as you get to 80% information, you have to make a decision, because sometimes the right decision made slowly is the wrong decision. It's the worst decision. And a better decision is actually the wrong decision made faster, because then you learn and then you figure out what the right decision is faster than you would have otherwise.
I think the principle there is success loves speed.
Yes.
It's the success loves you to read a book and consume it. It doesn't love you. It doesn't like you to read a couple of pages and then procrastinate and then read a few more. And, it doesn't like you to read a book over a year. It likes you to read that book in a week.
Mm-hmm.
Success depends on you reading this book in the week, consuming it quickly.
And then implementing it. And I call that just-in-time learning. It's I believe that you should not read a book or you should consume a course or video or whatever that you are not going to implement within 30 days. Because if you don't, well then, I think Tony Robbins called it the shelf esteem. It's like everybody's got their shelf esteem. It's all these books that they haven't read yet and they haven't implemented, right? But they read them or they buy them and put them on the shelf so that they feel good about themselves. I'm not a fan of that. That's worthless. It's what's better is buying a book just in time. Solves the biggest problem. So say I'm writing a book. Well, I hope people will buy this book and read this book just in time when they decide to do it and then implement it. Right. And so that's why I'm a big fan of just-in-time learning.
Yep. Narrow the gap between learning and taking action. Published author or best-selling author?
I mean, I got to say best-selling author, but you can't be a best-selling author if you're not published. Right? I had a guy I was learning from one time. He said, my crappy published book is better than the book you ain't got. It's kind of just his way of saying, hey, you can make fun of my book all you want. You can tell me it can be better. You can tell me, who am I to publish a book?
Really?
Tell me that it's not good. Okay, great. Tell me about your book. Oh, you don't have one? Shut up. Shut your mouth, right? It's the man in the arena. Right? I'm actually doing it. A lot of critics, it's not the critic who counts, it's the man in the arena, right?
What's the toughest lesson you've had to learn, the one that's taken you the longest?
Everything is your fault. I mean, when you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror and you realize that you just looked at the person who caused all your problems, right? But then the beautiful thing is that you also just looked at the person who has all the solutions to those problems.
Where you are right now is because of every decision and action you've made.
Yes.
Swallow that pill.
It's extreme ownership, and it's what about your leadership has led to this result.
No hiding place.
If you don't like it, change it.
What's the best gift you can give anyone?
Two things. I would say the gift of honest feedback. And then secondly, I would say the gift of the book that you wrote. And so that's maybe the second one's a little self-serving, but I think at 70 years old, I think anybody, I think there should be a cultural norm where you're 70 and you retire, or whatever the age is, and you spend a year writing a book about all the things you've learned up into that point. Because if you think about it, I would love to have my grandpa died when I was 1 year old. I'll never get to meet him. His name was Amos Chandler. And people always rave about him. I know maybe 2% about his life, and that's just stuff that people told me. I wish I could read his book, right? And so I think even if you're just giving this book to your kids and grandkids, that's the greatest gift that you can give them, is a book about your life, what you learned.
It's legacy.
Well, it's 100% legacy. And then the other one is honest feedback. I think too many people are scared to give honest feedback because they don't want to hurt your feelings. And it's actually the nicest thing that you can do for someone is give them honest feedback. And so I took a family member aside and I took a buddy aside, both of them last year, I think over Christmas or something. And I just said, hey, you need to lose weight. Like, you were getting out of shape. Don't do this. What are you doing? Lose weight. That was very uncomfortable. Now I'm an Enneagram 8, if that means anything to you, as a challenger. Right. So that's maybe a little bit more natural for me, but it was very uncomfortable for me to have that conversation. But then 3 months later, 6 months later, both of those people have lost weight. Yeah. And they're like, thank you so much for saying that. No one in my life was saying that. And it takes someone giving you honest feedback to sometimes to shake people up.
Yeah, I love your answer to the question, actually. Both answers. No one's ever said that before. And I ask everybody that question. What's the best gift you can give anyone? What's the most beautiful thing about writing a book?
I think it's the doing work once and then that having the leverage from that. I mean, it's legacy, it's impact, it's business growth.
It's done. And you get the dopamine hit of having it done. Favorite part of this, when I asked you the 3 biggest mistakes that you made on business, you said don't partner of insecurity, not creating a process early enough in SOPs, and the law of the lid. Mm-hmm. I think you hit home with that point beautifully. The story of your friend, actually, when you showed me the wristband, I was very emotional at that point. Also one of my favorite bits. But equally, right at the end, the best gift, honest feedback, and write a book for your own legacy. That's the best gift you can do. That'd be my favorite parts. What would be your favorite part?
I think those were some highlights. I mean, and on that note, I mean, you've already given us the best gift ever. You showed up, you gave us honest feedback on the studio setup, on the office. It's like, man, as soon as you finish this interview, I'm making a bunch of notes on how we can love it.
Oh, we're not finishing the interview until you sign the book for me, Mr.
All right, okay.
Mr. Bolt. Here we go. Sign the book.
When's your book coming out?
Later on this year.
Let's go.
James, excited for your book, he says, by the man himself, Chandler Bolt. On behalf of all of the listeners, Mr. Bolt, thank you very much. Selfpublishing.com is going places, folks.